Moving on to lesson 6, which is the second of the 5 top tools, which is networking and your network. All right? So, what is your network? I talked briefly about this before. I said who you know really does matter. And I think networking gets a bad rap, especially when it comes to creatives. The word itself scares people off. Oh no, I don't want to do that. What is it? What is networking? That's what I want to start with, right? The simplest way to say it is that it's about making friends. It's about finding people you have something in common with and can help, or maybe you can't help them, but you're just making connections with people. That's what networking is. And really the way to build your network, this is a cliche, but so few people do it. And so few people kind of get it in their minds that this is what it is, that it's about giving and not getting. And I think that a lot of times people don't do networking because they imagine they're going to go out there and be perceived as someone who's trying to get. But you don't have to do it that way. You can be someone who's a resource and just be looking for how you can help. That is networking, all right? So you strive to be a connector. That is the focus of your networking. That could be the goal of any networking event you go to. I'm just going to go there and be a connector. I'm not going to worry about what I get out of it. That could be a wonderful goal. And remember, when you're networking, that there are 2 things people love. One is to talk about themselves, and the other is to help other people. So in your networking, you can be asking the right questions to get them to talk about themselves, and you can be telling them what you need so that they will help you, and they will appreciate that. All right? So now that we know what networking is, let's talk about what networking isn't. It is not schmoozing. Schmoozing, which I think is that image we have of the really slick sales guy who's just handing out, could be a woman, handing out business cards to everyone that they meet, not talking at all about them, but talking about themselves the whole time, right? And again, people think, I don't do that thing because I don't want to be like that really bad one I've seen. But the truth is, again, because we're creative, we can do it in the way that is comfortable and fits for our own personality. You just have to take the time and the effort to find what that is for yourself. So that's schmoozing, and that's definitely not what networking is. It's also not about bad food at a networking event. Although, one of my best networking tips is talk about the food, right? If you don't know what to say, oh, these Swedish meatballs are pretty good, right? Or, how did you like that cheese? You can ask about the food. You can use the food as a networking tool. Actually, that reminds me of another networking tip, which is mostly for women, which is that in the bathroom or online at the bathroom is one of the best places to network, right? Because usually people are just standing there quietly or now on their phones. But that's an opportunity. You want to take every single opportunity you can find to chat with people because you never know what's going to come out of a conversation or where it will lead in life and in business. Networking is not blah, blah, blah. So when I say blah, 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 I mean the jargon. I mean you know, saying fluff about yourself or bragging about yourself. If you go into networking with the intention that you are going to be a connector, you're going to learn something, you're going to try to help people, then it takes away this whole aura of blah, blah, blah. And finally, networking is not you talking about yourself awkwardly. And I think, again, that's one of the assumptions people go into it with. And if you do and practice all the things that we're talking about here today, then the awkwardness will not disappear, but dissipate slowly. And you will develop confidence as a result of your competence with networking. All right, that's what I am proposing to you. So let's talk a little bit more about what networking is. So I said it's about making friends. I think it is also about finding connections with people. between people, even if it's not you, so you can bring two people together. That's striving to be a connector. You can go into it looking to help others because maybe you've got a lot of information and you're looking for people who need that information. But underneath it all, it's about giving. It's about giving of yourself. And again, I think it's a cliche, and yet most people do not actually do it. All right, now I want to tell you about a network, what an actual network, a successful network, has. Okay, so to get specific, because we can think about your network as this blob of people, but to really be successful, you have to think about who is in your network and who do you need in your network. And there's an article about this, I elaborated on this actually on entrepreneur.com, about the 4 different types of people you need in your network, but I will go over them here. One is obviously you need clients, right? You need the people who are going to pay you, and those are perhaps the most important people. But you also need peers. You need colleagues with whom you can share information, who you can go to when things are not going well and see how they've handled a particular situation. You need people to bounce ideas off of. That could come under the category of mentors. That's often what I do. I'm a sounding board and a nag for a lot of people because you need nags in your network. I should add that to the slide. And you need referral sources, people who are going to pass your name along even if they are not the person who's going to hire you. And referral sources are people, they could be your clients, they could be your peers, they could be your mentors. They're a special category of people who are connectors, and we each know a few of these people in our network, but you can take advantage of these referral sources by giving them what they need to pass your name along. So that may mean your business cards, or that may mean some information about who exactly you're looking for. But think about your network, think about who you do have people in some of these categories and which categories are weakest, and you need to bulk up and find some more of these people. JKO, what's happening in the chat room?
Well, this is really electrified the audience. They're really engaged here because a lot of creatives tend to work individually. And a lot of them, of course, if you freelance, you work from your home. So they all recognize the importance of getting out there and networking and meeting people for no other reason than social.
Yes.
The social aspect that you kind of lose when you don't work in a big corporation. But some of them have been sharing what are their challenges. Somebody did ask, they were really picked up on what you said about talking in the line for the restroom, because how can that not be awkward?
It depends on how you do it.
I guess, like everything.
Mm-hmm.
Nick T. Quavers is saying they feel when they're networking it's being genuine, and because that makes you more memorable.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are saying, they worry that they're going to get talking to that slick person who's only there to collect a business card. And they say, well, who cares? If you spend 30 seconds with that person,
right,
so what? You're still going to meet some more interesting people later on.
It's true, but I think one of the reasons people don't do networking also is because they're afraid they're not going to be able to get out of a conversation, either because they can't shut the other person up, or worse, they can't shut themselves up, right? Because I do think a lot of times this marketing thing, people get nervous about it, and then they don't have as much control over themselves, and so they don't put themselves in those situations in the first place. And that's, again, why it takes practice. And I actually have a couple of other tips that I want to share about networking, because I think that when people think of networking, automatically they think of their trade association. So designers may think of the AIGA or the Graphic Artists Guild or the group of their peers, which is fine, but you have to be very strategic in your networking too and know if I'm looking for business, if I'm doing business development, I'm probably not going to find that among my peers, although they may also be good potential referral sources. But to be very specific about, I'm looking for business, so where will my clients go? That's a big part of what we're going to be talking about in session 2. But the idea is networking almost sometimes automatically, people don't think about, well, where will I go to meet the kind of people I need to meet? They just think, okay, I got to do some networking. Here's a networking event. I'm going there, as if that will do it, right? But it does require more thought and more strategy than that. One other thought, there is a very interesting and worldwide group called BNI, Business Networking International. And basically, there are chapters everywhere, and they meet once a week, usually at 7 o'clock in the morning. And it's a good situation for people who need practice with their networking, because basically every week you have an opportunity to introduce yourself and be talking about what you do and hearing other people introduce yourself. So if you need help with that, if you need practice, I would look into BNI. All right, now I have another one of my what would you do ifs, and then we're going to do the exercise. So, what would you do? It's a surprise. I'm the only one who knows what the question is. What would you do if you were talking to someone in whom you have no interest and who won't stop talking? So we'll come back to the chat line for that, the chat room for that. Anyone in the room, what would you do? What would you do? Has this happened to you? What have you done? Dane?
Usually I try to just connect them with someone that share the similar interest with them. So if I'm in
How exactly?
So usually if I'm in a networking situation, I know a few other people in the room that might want to connect with that same person. So I would take that person and be like introducing them to the next, and then connect them to that. So it's
That's a good solution. Who else?
It depends so much on the situation, I think, and how many other people are in the room and all that. Sometimes you really are stuck with somebody, especially if it's a smaller group. But I like that technique if it's possible.
Justin?
I would give them my business card and say, I'm going to go meet a few more people. Good meeting you.
There is nothing wrong with ending the conversation in a polite and courteous way and doing something gestural with a gesture. Often people are unconsciously aware of your physical movements before they consciously become aware of it. So you may, if you're sitting down, you may stand up, and that will indicate, okay, we're ending this conversation. And I love your suggestion, Justin. Get out your business card and say, it was really great to meet you. I'd love to stay in touch. Let me have your business card, and I'm going to go talk to other people. Right? There's nothing wrong with the truth, which is we're here to network. We're here to meet other people. Reina?
But the truth is not, let's keep in touch.
Yes, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You have no intention actually of following up.
Exactly.
Oh, you might want to put them on your email newsletter list, right? Because you don't know who they know and where it's going to go. You just know that you're having kind of a difficult moment with them, but you don't know what the potential is. And that's why, actually, that reminds me of a very good other tip. I have one client who is very proactive, because I said you can put them on your email list, and often people say, but what if I don't have permission to put them on my email list? Because there is a law about that, right? And so in that moment you can say, I'd love to stay in touch with my email newsletter, or may I send you my email newsletter, or you get their permission in that moment to stay in touch. And stay in touch doesn't mean we're going to have coffee. It doesn't mean I'm going to call you next week. It just means let's stay in touch, because you never know. What are they saying in the chat room?
The popular ones seem to be, I need to go get a drink, or let's go to the bar, etc. And of course, the bathroom break. I need to go there. That seemed to be the most popular one. And I thought this was interesting. I'd like to know how this works. They say, there's somebody else I'd like you to meet. That strikes me as being slightly cruel. If you're bored rigid.
Cruel?
Yeah, if you're bored rigid, why would you then push that person on to somebody else?
So you're connecting.
Okay, so first of all, we all have different reactions to different people, right? And some horrible clients that you can't possibly work with would be fine with one of your peers or colleagues, because it's all about chemistry often. So even in that moment, you just think about, you don't think about what a horrible person it is, but what could they have in common with someone else? So I don't see anything wrong with that.
But a lot of people recognise exactly what you're saying, and Kelly was saying the business card is really a great idea, and it's a great way out, and it's very positive.
Yes,
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have business cards, right? That's, to me, another example of not being all in your business. Oh, I don't have a business card. Or they didn't bring it. They went to a networking event and they didn't bring their business card. Why not? Or they went to a conference and they didn't bring their business cards, or they left them in the room because they're so heavy, right? We can't carry them around. There are all these excuses that people have for not doing the things, the normal things that we do to get business.
And Krista was saying, I found that jumping in and being as chatty as them changes the conversation. Either they respond nicely, or they will end the conversation because they only really wanted to talk about themselves.
You can. I mean, I think that jumping in, as this person is saying, maybe falls into the category of, oh, I don't want to be aggressive. I don't want to be assertive. And a lot of people, that's what stops them. This fantasized or imagined behavior that will be perceived as too aggressive. But there's nothing wrong with it, and you have to experiment. That's how you're going to figure out if it's going to work. So I would strongly suggest that anything you think might be too much, just try it and see if it actually is. Because most of the time, creative people err way on the side of not enough as opposed to too much in many different realms. So in fact, say yes to the things you would normally say no to, and no to the things you would normally say yes to, as a way to expand your horizons. And I think that applies here too. When you're thinking about marketing yourself, there's always this, oh no, I can't do that, I don't do that, I wouldn't do that. Try it, see what happens. All right, now we're going to do the lesson as we bring this segment to a close. All right, so in the workbook, what you have is, as I mentioned, this short article from entrepreneur.com about the 4 categories of people in your network. And here are the exercises. See if you can think of one person in each of the 4 categories and write them down, right? So we had clients, peers, referral sources, and mentors. I forgot the mentors. Thank you. So write down one person in each. You can name them, but we don't need to know the names. And then see which category you have gaps in. And then obviously you're not going to do this right now, but go find people to fill in those gaps, right? Very strategically, I need peers, I need mentors, I need clients, I need referral sources. So let's have the question for the exercise here in the moment be, which of those categories do you think you're the weakest in, and what are you going to do about it? All right, put that in the chat room, and we'll talk about that here for a few minutes before we bring it to a close. Justin.
I guess I'd talk about, before I came to Creative Live, my biggest struggle was mentors. That was such a challenge, and I was like just so eager for that, to find a mentor, somebody to help you along the way, a sounding board, somebody who has a little more experience in the business world. And it's nice because I've found that. Now I have a lot of mentors. And it's amazing what that is doing in my life, in my career. It's really like, it's a nice trajectory when you have support systems.
I think, especially in this country, it's not common to look for help from other people. You know, we're very like American cowboys, we can do it on our own, we don't need other people. But the reality is that it's very helpful to have someone who has, been there, done that, is a little bit further ahead and knows how to guide you. I would caution you, however, you said now I have a lot of mentors. Be careful, because if you get too many competing pieces of advice, you're not sure which one to take. So really find 1 or 2 people you can really trust and who have your best interest in mind, whether you pay them or not, because there is this whole issue of, do you have to pay a mentor, or is it someone who you're not paying, but what are they getting out of it, right? So be careful, but I think that it is the category that most people have the fewest resources in. Excellent. Who else? Reina?
Definitely it's the same, and I do not have a big network of mentors. I'm curious where you found these.
Where'd you find your mentors,
people.
Justin?
Creative Live.
Creative Live.
Yeah, just being able to connect. I work with instructors all the time, and so I would say there's a few instructors that I've really connected with, I'm going to something on Thursday that is a mentor network, and it's a place to find mentors and connect with people, so that's one thing I've also discovered. So. Excellent.
Zane?
Yeah, I would probably work on establishing mentors that are like personal, have a personal relationship with. I have a lot of mentors that are like kind of virtual, and I get a lot of guidance from them online. But yeah, mentors would be an area that I would work on.
And I think that this actually relates to the topic of session 3, also asking for what you need, because really with a mentor you do have to say, this is what I need from you, and be very specific, because otherwise it can be a very fuzzy type of relationship without a lot of structure. So I would just be clear about that. Okay, what's happening in the chat room, JKO?
I think when Justin talked about mentors there, people really resonated with that. They said this is something that's really lacking in their support, and people are asking, you know, where do they find mentors? This is something that they're struggling even to sort of get connected with different people. I think, again, it goes back to a lot of creatives who work independently work in isolation. And I think that's one of the struggles that people really recognize they need to go. Networking is one, but mentorship really seems to be something that people recognize they need to work on.
Yes, and I also think, though, you have to be very careful about who you choose as a mentor, because you want someone who definitely has your best interest in mind and also understands what you need. And you know, that we have to have criteria for who we're looking for. Otherwise, it can be kind of a free-for-all.
Now, Kayla was asking, do mentors typically expect to be paid?
Some do and some don't. I do, but others don't. I think in job situations, there are a lot of corporations who have mentoring programs where that is part of the structure. And I think in that situation, they're not expected to be paid. But again, when there's no money exchanged, it can be a little weird. So it has to be set and clear who is getting what from whom and what the structure is.
Well, Amy Aha made a good comment just as you said that, Ilise, because she's saying mentoring could be give and take on both sides. What skills do you have that your mentor could benefit from as well?
Absolutely. And also, you know, most people appreciate learning. So even as you're teaching, you're learning. And if you find someone who values that, then that's the exchange.
And I think the one thing is just asking. If there's somebody that you admire and see, like it never hurts to ask, and also put some parameters on it. Say, hey, I really value your opinion and what you're doing in your business. Can we meet for an hour a month? You know, so that it's something that's very, you know, tangible. And if they can do that, they'll say yes. If they can't, I mean, the worst thing they say is no.
Absolutely. So, I think that the idea of being really clear about both the parameters and exactly what the expectation is on their part. And, you know, maybe you start with a half an hour a month, or just make it really easy for them. Have another goodie in the extra goodies bundle, which is a worksheet from another bundle I offer, actually called It's Who You Know, and this is Who's in Your Network, which goes into, it's basically a form that you fill out with all different categories of types of people, so that if you don't have to rack your brain thinking about who's in your network, it will help you figure it out. So you can find that at the bit.ly/command fees link.